All right. Welcome, everybody. I am Jamie from Ambition, and this is Sales Coaching Tips from the Pros, how hustle, transparency, and accountability are a winning strategy for any revenue org. I wrote that title. It is way too long. I am so excited. Before we jump in and before I introduce this panel, a little housekeeping. We will send a recording out to all of you. So if you just love this, you want to share it, great. If you need to jump off, also fine. You're also going to be muted. This is a webinar. I feel like everyone has been on 85,000 webinars, so I shouldn't have to tell you that. But if you have a question, type it into the Q&A or the chat. And also, I was telling these guys, we probably got more questions for this group than maybe any webinar I've ever done, especially here at Ambition. So tons of great questions at registration. So I'm going to try to get to as many as possible. But first, I get to go. So I'm really excited. Super high level. Why are we here today? It is no secret. Tomorrow, I believe, is the anniversary of the NBA calling the season, which I didn't realize that until this morning when I was sort of just getting my dates in order. It has been the wildest year of my professional career, I know. And, you know, of anyone out there doing a job in this environment, being a sales leader, doing it against all odds with a lot of pressure and a lot of eyeballs on you, this group knows exactly what that feels like. And they have learned a lot on the job as they went through it. So we are going to look at how they've led their teams, how they've changed their coaching, how they've used gamification, how they've just worked from home and figured out how to do that. Things that feel very familiar to all of us, but we're just going to learn what it felt like for them to do that. And because we're Ambition, obviously we'll talk a little bit about that, but this is definitely about these guys, not us. So now I'm going to introduce you. So to start, CJ, I'm going to let you go first.
Sure. Hi, everybody. CJ Wyatter. I am the Senior Director of Ticket Sales and Service with the Memphis Grizzlies.
And Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. Lindsay Jones here. I am the ticket sales manager here with the Memphis Grizzlies, so I manage our inside sales team.
Absolutely. And then we'll stay with the NBA. Kyle.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kyle Pottinger. I'm the Senior Vice President for the Phoenix Suns.
All right. And last but certainly not least, Richard Thornton.
Good afternoon, everybody. Richard Thornton, Senior Manager of Ticket Sales for the Atlanta Braves.
All right. And we're based in Nashville. So, these guys are all, I guess Kyle's kind of far away from me, but, we're all family here. I feel like you're my home team. So I told these guys before we started, I'm going to start this webinar as if there is at least one alien or Rip Van Winkle or someone who doesn't know what happened last year. So very quick recap of the environment that you guys were in. So baseball season 2020, originally scheduled to start March 26th with 162 games, March 12th, so 2 days from now, last year. Spring training was canceled. That is the first time that games have been put on hold since 2001 with 9/11. So a long time where nothing has been amiss. And then all of a sudden, they actually started their season on July 23rd and only played about 60 games. And they're already now back on their sort of second try at this. In this, we're still in it together. NBA season. This tomorrow is the anniversary, I guess. Anniversaries are usually celebrations, but is the 1 year of the season being suspended due to the pandemic. And I remember where I was and what I was wearing when I found out, because that was really the moment, I think, for a lot of people when they were like, oh, this is really real. Like, for this to happen, holy crap. So their regular season, though, had already been going on since October. So they'd gotten some good play in, and then they had to make the call. And then as maybe Rip Van Winkle and the alien don't know, I believe on July 22nd, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, you guys went into the bubble or started to go into the bubble, which was the hermetically sealed environment at Disney in Florida, one of the most, just a feat of engineering and organization. And I have many questions that we will get to about what that was like. So yeah, that happened. All that stuff happened. And fundamentally where, how, what you were selling changed like that. That was true for all of us, but nobody cared what Ambition was doing, and everybody cared what you guys were doing. I cared what Ambition was doing, but the news wasn't reporting on how we were going to update our homepage. So Richard, I think you've maybe been with us the longest. I'll start with you, put you in the hot seat. When we were talking last week, you mentioned that your team was in no way equipped to work remotely. You had never done anything like that before. So really briefly, just because I think how it was set up apparently was very impressive. What environment were you in live? Like what was it like with Ambition and all that kind of stuff? And then what did you have to do with your team to get them ready? You also hired we're onboarding a new team of inside sales reps, right? Mm-hmm. In the middle of all of this. So what initiatives spun out of that, and just kind of walk me through that switch.
Yeah. So a year ago this time, we got sent home on a Thursday afternoon, and we really thought we were going to be back on Monday at that point. We were slightly wrong on our timing on that. But yeah, we have what I would call a high touch environment in our sales floor, low desk, everyone can see each other, everyone can hear each other's phone calls. And we have 6 or 8 TVs that are blasting Ambition, and triggers are going off, and people are celebrating wins for each other. We were not set up or prepared to go remote at all. We didn't have people that had computers to work from home. The first couple of days, people were actually working on their phone, trying to reply to emails and or calls on their phone. So I was really impressed with our IT department. We were able to get up and running in about 48 hours for our whole staff. IT was delivering computers to people's doors. So that was the big transition. I think the biggest thing for us was communication, because we went from seeing everybody every day and being able to stop by and see how they're doing and see how they're handling things, to I may see you once a day on a screen if you're willing to turn on your camera, which was, a hit or miss kind of situation. So really the things that spun out of that was more communication, intentional communication, making sure you're talking every day with everyone, using Ambition differently. Whereas we let the TVs kind of handle it for us. Now we had to push things to people so they saw how they were doing. And then we had to really pivot from worried about our business to worrying about our people, because a lot of people were dealing with this differently. So we created connect and care teams, which were run by our reps, that really just looked out for each other. So those are the big initiatives that we're still using today in trying to keep the communication going and making sure everyone's morale is as high as it can be when this situations continue to ongo.
Interesting. And the connecting care team too, is that's like a senior rep or is it, do you have like a buddy, or is it random?
So we paired up 4 or 5 people, 4 or 5 reps, and it's led by our senior reps. So no managers are in there telling them what to talk about. We're not there to squash people when they're upset about something going on. It's really a chance for them to talk about how they feel. And it can be about work, it can be about life, it can be about anything. And we've really gotten some good takeaways out of those conversations, because people are open in those conversations without us being there. So
yeah, that's such a great point. Well, and I mentioned this a second ago. I think one aspect of you guys talking about what you do and what it was like for you and what you're going to do in the future is that you're doing it on really the world stage, especially the United States stage. And so one aspect of having you guys here that is fascinating is, it's one thing for reps to be sitting at home, scared, confused, frustrated, what have you, but you guys have this really unique aspect, which is I can turn on the news, I can get on Reddit, I can get on Twitter, and I can read a lot of gossip or speculation or what have you, like we're coming back, we're not coming back, what are we doing? And so Kyle, I'll put you in the seat, but any this is open to anyone. How do you combat that? Like, how do you actually keep morale high, which is a challenge for all of us right now? It's getting better with the sun out, thank God. But how do you keep your team aligned and focused when they can go and get information that you can't really control?
Yeah, I think for us, we kind of felt our way through the past year, like everybody else, made a ton of mistakes, but also learned a ton. And the thing that we established early on was the mindset of people first and always. And so with a younger sales team, we recognized that there was a good number of them, especially when it was intense quarantine, who were having literally zero human interaction daily. And so we established regular check-ins where we were any free times in our calendars from anybody on the leadership team. We were FaceTiming, just trying to check in on them, make sure that they were doing okay. And we really honed in on the idea of over communicating as much as possible. And my mindset around it was holding information back is going to hurt us. Communicating too much, it probably won't. And so we increased the frequency of our meetings with team, created an advisory committee that allowed team members to provide me with direct feedback on things that they were enjoying, things that were hurting them, frustrations that they had. And that, I think, set us up to where we were able to keep the group as tight knit as possible. Early on, I think it was the newness of Zoom, of video calls, that we were doing like Zoom happy hours. And then we realized that by 5 p.m., everybody was kind of done with Zoom. So we were able to phase out of those and try to think differently about it. But for us in particular, we're also at the same time going through a $250 million renovation to our building. So everything lined up together. And I think based on the over communication, that allowed us to be as transparent as possible with our team members and put them in position to continue to sell throughout all this.
What about you guys, CJ and Lindsay? I feel like you had some interesting things to say last time about that as well.
Yeah, I think like everybody, we didn't quite know what to expect in the beginning. And I think everyone's initial projections were, you know what, we're going to deal with this for a few weeks, maybe a month, and then we'll be back. Certainly next season is not going to be impacted. And we quickly learned that was changing, and we were going to be impacted. We're still impacted. And I think in addition to just increased transparency and communication, I think we also, as leaders, had to be a bit vulnerable and let them know that, hey guys, we're going through this the first time too. So there is going to be only so much that we can share because we don't have an answer. And I think that went a longer way than if we tried to kind of fake we knew what we were doing, and just letting everyone know that, you know, we're going to figure this out. It's going to be challenging, and we're going to have to probably have a couple false starts along the way, which we certainly have. Not only with initiatives we wanted to do with our staff, but even getting the season started. We were one of the few teams in the NBA that chose to or plan to open with fans in a socially distanced capacity when the season tipped off in December. And it was a couple days before the county, which Memphis resides in, shut that down and issued a safer from home order. And here we did all this work to get to a point where we can start having fans attend, sell packages, communicate what the process would be, keep people engaged throughout this season, their options for next. And as soon as we got to a point where we thought that would happen, everything changed. Fast forward a month down the road, we start getting things going again. Snowstorm hits. So on top of the issues that we had with the pandemic, we've got other forces at work that complicate things. So it continues to present new challenges. And I think along the way, just being a vulnerable leader, letting them know that we're going to figure this out, but give us an opportunity to get the right answer. Was certainly part of our process. You'd add to that, Lindsay.
Yeah, I was going to jump in too. Kyle made some good points. I think a big part of the transition was just over communication and making sure that we were focused on our people 100% of the time, and increasing the number of one-on-ones that we were having. I know I went back to a weekly format versus bi-weekly. And on top of that, we started doing team calls every single morning. It wasn't, hey, we're going to do this once a week. It's no, we're going to meet every morning. And then I'm going to check in the afternoon as well with a quick call, So being able to do that, I think really helped, but also starting to refocus from KPIs to more of like, okay, how can we grow as a team during this time when selling isn't at hindsight, right? So that was something we did, I think, really well, is we focused on training a little bit more than we did in the past. How can we develop our reps and really, mastering the product and process that we go through in a sales process? And, what can we do as a leadership team to make sure that they're staying sharp and ready when we are able to start selling again?
I love that, because my next question was actually for you, because you are that frontline manager. Like you are training, recruiting, having those one-on-ones every day. And so I believe, I hope I've gotten this right. My notes were so sloppy. Basically, I had a meeting with CJ and Richard where I was just writing down everything they said. So it's my understanding, though, you guys over this past year, just, on the heels of what you just said, development, that's always been a huge focus for you. It seems like it's really ingrained in your culture as a sales team to make sure, and like you just said, you use that time really wisely. But you also went a step further and were like, let's just take this time to evaluate technology. Let's make a CRM transition. Let's just get some change management going in there. So can you kind of walk me through why you guys did that? And maybe CJ, you could add some color too, why you guys did that, but also very specifically, just getting into details, how did that happen? How do you roll out a remote CRM sort of tools training transition?
Yeah. First off, I'll say it was just the perfect storm. I can't say that we planned every little piece of it out, but for whatever reason, it worked out perfectly for us because we knew that we were transitioning from CRM Dynamics into Salesforce. And throughout the summer, we started conversations with Ambition, and it just started to click. This is what we need to really reinforce good habits and help our reps understand Salesforce. So it worked out really perfectly in that regard. But I would say from the Ambition standpoint, it's really just gamifying their work. So they're not doing anything different. They're understanding this new Salesforce process that's different than Dynamics, but ultimately they're able to see the progress they're making and that they're doing it correctly. As long as it, is done correctly, they can see it in Ambition. So it's literally a mirror from, your Salesforce to your gamified Ambition screens. We also have Ambition living within Salesforce. So they just open it up. It's right there, ready to go. But it's always in front of them. So that was huge for us. I wouldn't say that, like I said, it really just worked out. I was so excited to be able to implement it and get it in at that time. And I think CJ could attest is, that helped us instill good habits with a new CRM system. So, along with that, we added, initially to start a couple call blitzes each week. That was an easy way to reinstate those KPIs that we're getting back to in the fall. And it, I think, really helped our reps stay accountable and understand Salesforce better.
Yeah. Well, and Richard, that reminds me of something you said last time, which, especially with those new reps that came on in January, those poor babies, just starting where it's we had a guy start the day that everything got shut down. I've never met him. He's great, I'm assuming. No. But talking about those people in January, one thing that struck me was that you really had to rely on technology to show them just that they were progressing through onboarding, because that is something you'd never done before. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like and what you had to do differently?
So full disclosure here, CJ mentioned that we're kind of feeling our way through this and don't know what we're doing. So I failed last year's group that was new that started in January when we got sent home in March because we didn't really know what we needed to do every day and we didn't really have anything to sell. So we were trying to figure out how we measure what they're doing. But from that experience, I learned on this year's group that started in January in a very work from home environment, hey, let's use ambition so that we can show them what success looks like. Because usually I'm out there on the sales floor with them every day, coaching them up and telling them what to do better and what not to do. But Salesforce made it where they can see it on their own. Ambition made it where they could see it on their own. And when I asked them about a month in, what motivates you every day? The answer across the board was ambition. I want to see my score every day be where it's supposed to be. And Jamie didn't ask me to say that.
I was like, I'm not paying him to say that. Thank you, though. That's really great to hear.
But what I learned was the whole accountability doesn't have to be me looking over their shoulder and coaching individually. It can be something bigger than that. And really, their first week numbers weren't what we were expecting a month in. And we had that gradual increase and it worked so well. They kept up and now they're running well and they know what to expect each week. So, and it's really changed something for me who's been doing this so long. I mean, I've been doing a similar job for 10 plus years and you get habits and not all of them are good. So this really retrained my thinking that, I don't have to be the answer for every question they have. There's other ways to do that. And that really helped us in this environment is having that stat in front of them every day. Hey, I did my job today. I feel good about that.
And you use the word habits and that transitions really well into my next sort of phase of this conversation, which is, I've sold stuff, we've all sold stuff. And it's like, you have your little snippets and talk tracks. And, if X person says this, I can say one of these three things. And, you don't have to stand over a good salesperson's shoulders and monitor everything they say, but going through these transitions and this time, the very products that you sell in their day-to-day conversations fundamentally change. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about just what you guys sell and how you had to retrain not new reps, but existing reps on having conversations about, because I would imagine instead of selling seats, you're now focused on retention and you're focused on selling an imaginary promise of being back at a game. So Kyle, I'll ask you first, but anyone can weigh in. What was that like? Was there a lot of retraining that had to happen of existing reps? What were you selling or not selling, I guess, last year?
Yeah, there was definitely some training for us. We were fortunate here in Arizona where we were one of the states who weren't hit as bad as other states early on in the pandemic. So for us, kind of the beauty of simplicity, our simple-mindedness told us not to stop selling. So we continued to make outreach. We continued to sell. We continued to sell the vision for what the new building was going to look like, as well as the promise of the team on the court. And so it was really a training with our team members, just understanding more how to navigate a sales process that's going to take place mainly on Zoom, as opposed to having the building as a resource. That's such a core component of our sales process normally. That was really the focus. We were similar to what CJ mentioned in evaluating different technologies. We were able to look at some different platforms that helped us highlight some of the new items that were added into our building better than others. And so that helped a ton, but ambition was also a key component in it. For us, we tried to hone in. We always try to coach the process more so than the results. In this situation, it was even an even more heightened focus on the process and how many appointments we're getting, how long we're getting in front of people and trying to figure out what's working or not working. And so we were able to lean in on ambition and some of the metrics that we were getting out of that to highlight the process and figure out where we were having success, where we were struggling, and then coach the team members based off of that insight.
Would you guys say that you you are a more data-driven organization now just as a result of having to be than you were before? Or is it different data points, I guess?
Yeah, I think we've always been super data heavy. I joke around that I don't make a life decision without consulting with our business intelligence team first, but
Yeah.
we've always been really data heavy. It's just different data points though, and I definitely think we're a stronger sales team, a stronger sales organization coming out of this than we were going into it.
That's great. What about you guys? Anything to add to that?
Yeah, we did have an interruption in selling, where I think we attempted to continue to sell what products that we had, but we had a certain period of time where we really did not have anything to offer, and it was more, what are we going to do for existing clients, and how are we going to retain that group? Rather than proactively selling to new, because most of the folks that had some sort of an interest came to a screeching halt when we could not define what the future looked like. And when that took place, I think our effort did shift for a while to the retention effort, who had money on file for games that they had paid for that were no longer going to be played. So there was a strong effort in retaining that group, getting their credit rolled over to the following season. And it was really an all hands on deck approach, because we had some clients that were relatively new, had a firm relationship with their new business representative, and then others that had a longer standing relationship with us that our client services. So just making sure the right people were getting in touch with our client base to encourage them to stick with us, stick through this, because there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel. And then certain products that we had, for example, group sales, really in a socially distanced setting, greatly reduced capacity, that wasn't necessarily going to be a thing. So repurposing those sales reps to focus more on package sales, doing what they can from a retention effort. We had to be very nimble and flexible as a sales staff in order to, one, keep business going and be able to project what we'll be able to do the following year, but quite honestly, justify keeping folks employed. And that's something that we had to make adjustments on our end when the environment changed so drastically.
And I'll piggyback off of kind of what we've all been talking about today. We never stopped interacting with our customers. We were hoping month to month that we would be able to play games. So we're hoping for April, and then we're hoping for May. And so we didn't necessarily have a product to sell. So it goes back to being vulnerable and communicating. So one of the things that we did from a season ticket standpoint is all of our reps emailed their season ticket holders and said, hey, this is what I'm doing during the pandemic and the shutdown. I got a new puppy. I'm doing projects at home. What are you doing? And it was just a different touch point. And I'm really proud of the fact that we never stopped communicating with our fans. And I think it helped us come out of it stronger and lead to a really good year this year so far. Because it was scary, because we really didn't have anything to say to them. And it was finding more ways to interact and, hey, you're going through this too. What are you doing? And so it really strengthened a lot of the relationships, because usually in March, we're not having those conversations with our customers. We're getting ready for the season. And so it really gave us a time to slow down and really get to know our customers better. But we had to be willing to do things we hadn't done before and put ourselves out there. And we think it worked out for us in the long run. But it was a little scary there. Like, is someone just going to say, why are you calling me? And we never got that reaction from our fans. They're like, thank you for interacting with me. At least I know that you care. So that was kind of our standpoint. And it really helped us out to stay in touch that whole time.
Well, and I think you make such a great point, and I really hadn't thought of this analogy. So thanks. Thanks for doing my job for me. No, but I think it's really interesting that, you say fans, because that is what, and again, this is why your environment is so unique, but I think there are a lot of lessons that anybody can take from that, where it's like, if you start thinking if I think of ambition customers as our fans, like what would Richard do? What would Richard's team do? And start thinking of engaging with your customers with that same level of care, as if you've got 100 some odd year organization backing it. I think that's a really great reminder to everybody. So I also wanted to talk about, you actually jumped ahead and I already was going to ask this question to you. But going back to CJ for a second, you mentioned budgets getting slashed, and obviously if you don't have stuff to sell, it's this uncertain time. Everybody has to get a little scrappy and get creative, I think. And I think that's one of the big through lines we saw with all of our customers, especially, but you, when we talked a week ago, told me some really cool stuff that you guys have done in lieu of being able to give out prizes or things that would cost money. And so you're using accolades. And again, not a commercial for Ambition, but I think what you're doing and why you're doing it is interesting. So can you kind of talk a little bit just about, and Lindsay too, if you want to add some color, sort of I think it's the Sales Talk Championship, and just how you got creative with making sure that people felt recognized, and it wasn't just like, hey, I'm making sure you're showing up and working, but keeping it fun and engaging.
Yeah, one of the things that attracted us to Ambition was just having a more robust way to host sales campaign competitions and also recognize our sales team. So no question, morale was a struggle for everyone, and really to try and get our sales team re-engaged. A lot of us will say, hey, to spice things up a little bit, let's have a sales contest of some kind. It gives them something else to focus on. But we did have the challenges, and quite honestly, sports is, I think, usually fairly conservative when it comes to how much they're going to spend to generate revenue. I think we all deal with that, where we're not going to drop a ton of money into various contests. And one of the things that does help is the recognition component. Well, Ambition offered us a way to not only track a specific contest, showcase it for everyone, but also assign accolades for certain achievements that essentially live with that rep, for that year and beyond. And it was a good way to have us keep in mind what they have achieved, and even beyond just a sales campaign or contest that we were conducting. We also invested in sales training with a company called the Tyson Group, and that group came in, did regular training virtually, and as part of their process, they have a Sales Talk Championship where you learn those different scripted components. You've got a certain process that you have to follow. And then eventually there's a competition amongst the staff, and eventually a Sales Talk Champion winner. And we're able to recognize that individual who won that Sales Talk Championship, not only celebrate it through putting it up on the TVs and recognizing what they just achieved, but it's also something that kind of lives on their Ambition profile. And that helps us throughout the year as we continue evaluating and support, why does this person deserve, to be in line for a promotion? What are some of the achievements that they've done? And it also does the inverse, where those that I'm sure we all have salespeople who are ready to run the company tomorrow. And we have to have talking points as to what are some of the things that perhaps some of their peers have achieved, and an accolade is something to point to say, why don't we look at that as a goal over the next quarter to try and achieve some accolades? It just gives us more things to point to in that, career development process.
That's such a great point. I know I look at my Peloton achievements, and then I get on my boyfriend's profile and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I didn't do as good. Maybe I haven't done as many rides as he has. Yeah, no, and it's such a good point. And to your, to this remote environment that we're in, having those sort of meters and those metrics available to everyone and visible, I'm sure is super helpful. Curious too, just open question. Have any of you, because I didn't ask, so putting you on the spot, if the answer is no, you can get back to me. But did you guys run any fun competitions or do anything sort of out of the norm? And this is more of like a Richard Kyle question. Lindsay too. Lindsay actually sent me this exhaustive list. I'm going to put it on the blog. One was like the 12 days of Christmas, which I like giggled. So did anyone else do any other fun competitions or contests or things maybe out of the norm to keep people just having fun and showing up every day?
I can jump in. We're actually in the middle of a sales contest right now. It's the first contest we've run where it's between both of our major revenue groups. So it encompasses our marketing partnerships team and our ticket sales team. We call it our Royal Rumble contest, where each team is actually given a wrestler that they represent.
Oh, yes.
Throw chairs at each other. To try to keep it a little bit more lighthearted, have some fun with it, and then we've learned that the best incentive you can give out is cold hard cash. So we're giving out cash each week, and the team's been excited about it. But we've used the ambition system to track the contest so far, and really use it as a point just to bring the two teams together, have some fun with it, and celebrate some of the wins along the way.
Oh, that's awesome. Is it, do you get to pick your wrestler? Like, could I go old school?
I think we got like Hulk Hogan and
okay. Like, is The Rock involved?
Yeah, The Rock's in there, Undertaker.
Diamond Dallas Page. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some good ones in there. So they're having some fun with it. A lot of 1980s, 1990s photos that are being sent around right now. So it's been a fun time.
That is excellent. I love that. What about you, Richard? Did you get to do your spring training competition?
Just like the Suns, we're in the middle of a competition now. Historically, we've always done a competition around this time of year, and the prize is a trip to spring training. So usually we send 4 or 5 reps down to spring training to enjoy a game in a few days down in Florida where the weather's nice. Obviously, that wasn't an option this year. We're not sending anybody on trips. But we actually got an idea from a webinar that you guys did a couple months ago. Someone, we don't know who we stole the idea from. We can't.
It was me.
but Seth from our team was on the call, and a company mentioned an Assassin's game where.
Oh yes, that was me. This was not my idea, but I'm so excited. Go on.
So where you're targeting someone each week and someone's targeting you. And so we're right in the middle of that. We called it hide and seek because we thought Assassins was a little too much.
It's pretty aggressive.
But it's been interesting because there's been conspiracy theories about who's after who and
yes.
what situation you're in. So we've it's an 8-week contest and we're coming to the end of it, but we're going to end up with 6 people that can win prizes, and the top person gets to pick their prize. Fancy dinner or cold hard cash, which is good for some people, future flight vouchers, stuff like that. It's been interesting, and we've learned a lot from it. It's created some aggressiveness from some people. And I think we've broke some records for our ambition scores over the last few weeks. Part of it's timing because we're getting close to the season, but we've had people scoring upwards of 300 points for an activity score per day. So it's been pretty outrageous.
If you don't know, the average is like 100, right? Like that's your target. So 300 is absurd. So I would say that's a successful contest. Yes. What about you, Lindsay? Any fun stuff? If not, you sent me a whole list.
Yeah, I sent you a bunch. But I would say the most relevant one, when we started getting back to knowing that we were going to have fans in the stands, we wanted to do something to entice our staff. And we were able to implement a Jumpstart January sales campaign where we had, a couple of our teams from an AE and TSR, which stands for Account Executive, Ticket Sales Representative, they were able to compete in their own separate groups, which was great, but it really just encouraged speeding up those KPIs and making sure that people are starting to make calls more, actually having conversations, but actually making sales. Because as CJ alluded to, we, kind of got postponed with the start of the season with fans in the stands. So we were like, okay, what can we do to entice our staff now that we are actually getting back to having fans in the stands? So that was when we decided, let's go ahead and launch a sales campaign. But that's one that really stood out. And, uniquely, that was one where we didn't have cash as a prize. We chose the accolades as the prize, and reps still competed heavily. They were still super excited. And, I think that's one thing that's unique is that we were able to do that. And then at the end, once we announced our top 2, we did end up giving them prizes, but they weren't monetary. It was some kind of gift that we had set aside. I can't remember if it was an autographed item for each of them. But, we shared that they did get something in the end. We just didn't lead that. We didn't use that as leverage necessarily.
Yeah.
So it's kind of unique. And then one thing I'll mention is we had one rep specifically in that campaign that really went out of her way to help out our service team when she didn't have to. She was making calls on behalf of a person that had left. And we decided we needed to find a way to recognize her at the end of the competition. And Jason from Ambition gave me the idea, and he's like, well, why don't you give her an accolade? You're using accolades to reward all of your winners at the end. And we were like, that is brilliant. Why would we not create a hustle accolade that we can instill throughout the entire year, not just in this campaign, but moving forward, you can earn these hustle accolades for helping your teammates out. So that's something that we did that was unique, and probably doing it again in the future.
Yeah.
So.
I'm like writing that down. I'm like, I want that. I'm helping everybody. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So before I get into it, because we still have a little bit of time left, before I get into questions, and by the way, yeah, if you have a question out there, let us know. What's next? So I know right before we hopped on, tonight, I believe, is the in-person game in Memphis. And I know there's some Lakers games coming up. Like, this was like right before we started, so I'm misremembering all of this. But yeah, what's going on now? Like, what is the current climate today, and sort of where are we headed, and how are you keeping everybody engaged? And we'll just go through. So, Kyle, you go first. Oh, you're muted.
We're hoping, like everybody, sorry about that.
That's okay.
There's light at the end of the tunnel, getting to the other side of this pandemic. So we're at 3,000 fans in our building right now. The NBA, it's something that I think I can confidently say for CJ, Lindsay, and I, we're proud to be a part of this league that's been really at the forefront of how to approach it and how we've navigated through the past year. I didn't realize that it's been the 1 year anniversary until you mentioned it. So kind of crazy that we've been
wild
the past year, but we're hoping that we're close to getting through this. So we're at 3,000 fans right now. For us, we're continuing to release the rest of our schedule for sale in waves. So to your point, we just went out with our Lakers game today, but we're excited about where we're headed and looking forward to hopefully getting to the 21-22 season and being back to a better sense of normalcy. I think we're all going to appreciate being back in an arena at whether it be a sporting event or a concert once we get through this one.
Yes.
on the front end. So we're excited to get to the other side of this.
Yeah. Well, I want to come see the new digs, I guess. You guys.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm headed that way. Complimentary tickets. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just inviting myself to all the games. What about, so you, CJ and Lindsay, you guys were saying some really interesting stuff before we started, just about how stuff is getting back to normal, but it isn't normal because your teams aren't going to these games where they would have been before. So kind of talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, we are in a unique situation in the environment we're in because we also had a number of games that the team was shut down. They couldn't compete because of contact tracing. So we have a loaded second half schedule to where I don't think that the team has more than one day off in between games. I feel like we're playing baseball, Richard. But and a couple stints where we have 4 games in 5 days. So that's been interesting to navigate. We've introduced a new product where it's a flex plan for the second half of the season, which we don't typically offer something like that. So we're looking at some products that we have released. We've also expanded to single game sales beyond just our season ticket members. And we're looking at this season less of a what kind of revenue we can generate and almost more what kind of new leads that we can generate, folks that are interested in coming out in this environment, and certainly at a frequent rate, and are not season ticket members are probably fantastic candidates for larger commitments. So part of our strategy is not just looking for revenue, but also what can lead to more qualified individuals for next season. So we got to use what we have to work with, and a lot of games in a short amount of time are going to provide us that opportunity for some touch points.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I'll mention from a staffing standpoint that I mentioned to you is, we are shifted a little bit. We don't work games like we normally did in a normal season. With COVID, we want to keep our fans safe. We want to keep our staff safe. We need to keep everyone safe. So along with that, we don't have the normal sales tables on our concourse. We don't have a service desk immediately ready for fans to go to. But we are working from the office, which is connected to our arena, where we have maybe 4 reps each game working in the office, ready to answer calls. And we have some managers on duty that can run into the arena if something is pressing they need help out with. But fortunately, because we are transitioning slowly into having more fans on the front end, the fans that we've had in the stands are primarily people that have done business with us, fans that have done business with us before. So, it's majority season ticket holders that understand the process, less of just the general public fans that are coming in our doors. So we've had that as a benefit, but, as we gradually increase and hopefully get more fans in the stands throughout the end of this season, hopefully that means that our staff can find some normalcy, and we'll change those plans along the way with the environment.
Yeah. All right, Richard,
So-
bookend, and then we'll get into questions.
So we're really excited about the year. We're about a month away from opening day for us. And like Kyle said, we see light at the end of the tunnel. I feel very strongly that we're going to have full capacity by the end of our season. Part of that is we have a really long season. It runs 6 months, but being outdoor, being summer, that all helps us. We are in a really good spot. We have some advantages. We have the All-Star game this year, the MLB All-Star game. So honestly, it's been business as usual for us, but a little different. Obviously, we're getting close to opening day, so we'll probably have some announcements about what that looks like. But up until this point, we've been business as usual. Things are going well from a sales standpoint, and we anticipate having a really good year. It also helps our team. Almost made the World Series last year. So we just have a lot working for us, and we've been able to capitalize on that. And we're just crossing our fingers and hoping that the trend that we're seeing right now continues. And in a few months, we're really back to normal of what we all expect a baseball game to look like. So
I want to go. I'm jealous. I didn't get to go when our staff went on a little field trip there, and I kick myself now. So you will see me in Atlanta. All right, so we're gonna move into some questions now, and I'm gonna go with my favorite one that came in, because I'm curious, and I'm the boss here right now. So the question was, what is one thing you do that separates you from the competition, and why? And I think this is a funny question for you guys because it's like, especially I guess the rare opportunity to ask the NBA teams, do you see yourself as competitors? It's very different than like I know who my competitors are. I'm in software. It's very black and white, but when you have sort of season ticket holders and regional, fans and that kind of thing. Do you guys see each other that way, or is it way more collaborative? Are you, I feel like just anecdotally, I've heard of Kyle recommending Ambition to other people and like helping people within the NBA franchises and sharing, methods and things that you guys do. So talk me through that. I'm very curious.
It's super collaborative. I mean, on the court, obviously it's competitive. Outside of the court, I mean, CJ and Lindsay selling a season ticket holder in Memphis isn't necessarily taking business away from us. So we try to encourage the flow of ideas as much as possible. The NBA has a group in the league office called Teambo that their sole purpose is to share ideas across teams and best practices. So as much as we can help one another, we try to do so. Through this pandemic. We've tried to, as all of us have not navigated the process of getting fans back in the building, working with our local authorities. We've tried to share those plans with one another and help where we can to allow all of us to get people back in the building and to find that success that we're all working towards.
Yeah. Is it the same in the MLB, or is it just stone cold?
I'll actually say that the pandemic has made us closer and more collaborative, because I think we all realized live entertainment, we're all in the same boat. We need everyone to be successful. Even here in Atlanta, everyone's looking at us because we're going to be the first one that goes to scale with fans. How does that look? How does it work? So the other teams are hoping that we do well because that means they can do it. So
yeah,
absolutely it's collaborative. And I know on the MLB side, we've actually become more collaborative in the pandemic than we were before, because we had more time to collaborate. Like you weren't going to 80 games a year. You had the time to discuss how are you doing this? And we're definitely not competing against the teams other than on the field, because especially in Atlanta, we're such a regional team that there's really no one else in our market from a baseball standpoint. So yeah, we're not competing against everyone else.
Yeah.
One thing I add to.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. One thing I would add to that is, though we collaborate probably more within our sport because there's resources that, like Kyle mentioned, the team marketing business operations function at the league level, that's their role to help connect teams and collaborate. But I think the pandemic has opened up a few doorways to collaborate amongst different leagues and associations. When we were one of the few teams that were welcoming fans and had already gone through the process of safety protocol, I had league representatives reach out from MLS, friends, contacts within the NFL, Major League Baseball, that reached out just to find out what we're doing. So I would say as an industry, we're not just sports specific. We'll collaborate across lines because we all are living a very similar life.
That is so fascinating. And actually, yeah, last week at a virtual event, which is weird for me, I met someone that is in Vancouver for their MLS team, and he came to this webinar, registered for this webinar because he was like, yeah, what are they doing? So that's such a good point. I think we have time maybe for one or two more. So the other one that I wanted to ask is, this one's just straight up a sales question, and I'm curious. I find my senior reps are resistant to coaching. Any tips on how to refocus their behavior without getting an eye roll? So I think this is a super common issue where you got a young new person that's like, yeah, I want to soak up all the knowledge, but how do you roll out a coaching plan? Or have any of you done that with maybe some more tenured reps that are like, I'm good. I could run the business. I don't need it.
I think it comes down to how well you know them and where they want to be, and cater that development plan towards what their goals are. I think if we try and force them to achieve what we want out of it, that's where we run into trouble. So taking the time to, really understand what are their goals, what are they trying to achieve, and how does their current role help them get there, and make sure that they understand that they're not going to be able to take a next step unless they are the best at their current role. And that's when opportunity will find them. If they're hyper focused on just next steps and they're not doing their current role well, that's going to put them at a disadvantage to take next steps. But I think one of the most helpful tools is spending the time to really know who they are, what their aspirations are, and also how they like to be managed. And that helps put you in a better position to, I think, have those conversations, and they'll be more open to the learning process.
Cool. All right. I'm going to ask one more. I'm going to do it. I'm going for it. This one I'm asking because it's so specific. I'm like, this person probably really needs this answer. Any tips on building trust and authority quickly when you inherit an SDR, BDR team from a manager that is leaving? So manager's gone. I've got this whole team and I need them to trust me and listen to me. What do I do?
I'll answer pretty briefly on this. You've got to be yourself. That's the best way to establish trust. And if you come in and try to be the person that is taking over and putting your stamp on it, that's probably not going to work, at least in my experience. The best way is to come in, be yourself, and then let them be themselves. But set some guardrails on, like, this is my expectations, and stick to them. But I think even the choice of words of putting your stamp, or that's important. Like, you want to collaborate with that team and be yourself is the best way that I would say to do it.
I'm seeing heads nodding. All right. Well, we are out of time. This was such a blast. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this, for being so vulnerable and open and honest and being yourselves. It was awesome. I learned a lot. Yeah. Any parting words? Nope.
Nope. Thanks for having us. It was fun.
Good. And I hope all of your teams win all the games. All right. Bye,
I got the
guys.
Suns. Got this.
Hey, you too. All right. Bye.
Awesome.